Scrooge called the ghost of Jacob Marley from the other side of Scrooge's locked and bolted bedroom door in my favorite film version of A Christmas Carol, the 1970 musical Scrooge. If you didn't catch it, that was Scrooge with about 8 O's. Surely Charles Dickens chose this name, the main character of his classic novella, for the reason that the way it sounds as well as what it means. Names have special meaning in Dickens' novels, none more so than Scrooge. Mark Roberts, in his article, Ebenezer Scrooge, The Meaning Behind the Name, claims that Dickens got it from the obscure English verb scrooging, which means to squeeze or crush. More than a title, Scrooge describes what he has become: a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous sinner. That's why the ghost of Jacob Marley comes to Scrooge on Christmas Eve and tells him he has a chance to turn his life around. That he has the hope of escaping Marley's fate of wandering throughout the world through eternity, trying to get rid of his fears and regrets of the past. But first, he must be visited by 3 spirits, the first of which is the ghost of Christmas past. Long past, Scrooge asks. No, your past, says the ghost. This Advent season, we are remembering Jesus' first coming, which we celebrate on Christmas Day, as we prepare for Jesus' second arrival by asking, are we ready? Do we have our lives in order? Or are we haunted by the spirit of fear of the past? Are we reluctant, like Scrooge, to take a journey through our past, to face our fears and our regrets, to own up to who we have become? In the passage we're looking at this morning from Genesis 32, Jacob has come to the banks of the Jabbok River, journeying on his way home to the land of his fathers. Before he can continue, he is haunted by the fear of the past. Not the long past, but his past. As Scrooge's name has special meaning in Dickens' A Christmas Carol, so do the names in this passage. They help us understand how it is that Jacob comes to deal with the regrets and fears of his past, and shows us how we can face our past and resolve it as well. Carol Cooper is going to stand and read this passage for us. Here.
But during the night he got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He got them safely across the brook along with all his possessions. But Jacob stayed behind by himself, and the man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he couldn't get the best of Jacob as they wrestled, he deliberately threw Jacob's hip out of joint. The man said, "Let me go, it's daybreak." Jacob said, "I'm not letting you go until you bless me." The man said, "What's your name?" And he answered, "Jacob." The man said, "But no longer, your name is no longer Jacob. From now on, it's Israel, God wrestler. You wrestled with God and you've come through." Jacob asked, "What's your name?" The man said, "Why do you want to know my name?" And then, right then and there, he blessed him. Jacob named the place Peniel, God's face, because he said, "I saw God face to face and lived to tell the story." The sun came up as he left Peniel, limping because of his hip.
Thanks. Jabbok means to pour out empty. The river Jabbok flows from the east to the west and empties into the Jordan River, about midway between the Sea of Galilee to the north and the Dead Sea to the south. Jacob has come here from Haran, where he's been living for 20 years. 20 years before, he fled there after his brother Esau had said, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Jacob had deceived their father Isaac into giving him Esau's blessing. Esau and Isaac were twins, but Esau came out first, so he had the right of birthright and inheritance, the blessing of inheritance. So when Esau heard that Jacob had stolen his blessing, he had already taken his birthright, Jacob said, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." When their mother, Rebekah, heard what Esau had said, she convinced Isaac to send Jacob to the land of her brother Laban and live with him there in Haran and take a wife from among her people. So Jacob lived there for 20 years. He married Laban's daughters, Leah and Rachel. He fathered 11 sons between his two wives and their maidservants, Bilhah and Zilpah. He accumulated many cattle and camels, many sheep and goats. He became prosperous. Then God said to him, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you." So Jacob came to the banks of the Jabbok. Before he crossed, though, he sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau, seeking reconciliation. When the messengers came back and told Jacob, "We went to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and he has 400 men with him," fear and distress overcame Jacob. Jabbok is the place where our past catches up with us. It's the place where our fears and regrets come back to haunt us. Rather than steering us forward like a rudder, the spirit of fear uses our past to drag us down like an anchor. A man said to his friend, "You look depressed. What are you thinking about?" "My future," he answered. "What makes it look so hopeless?" He replied, "My past." Comments the British Baptist pastor Charles Spurgeon. Jacob had wronged his brother, and you can't do a wrong without being haunted by it later. "Conscience makes cowards of us all," Shakespeare observed in his play, Shakespeare. "Spirit, remove me from this place," Scrooge faced the ghost of Christmas past. "I told you that these were but the shadows of the things that have been. They are what they are. Don't blame me," the ghost says. Jacob seems to have forgotten that God told him he would watch over him. Instead, he resorts to worldly wisdom, as he usually has. He divides his camp into two. This way, if Esau attacks one camp, the other can escape. He sends gifts of livestock ahead to try to placate Esau. He sends his family across the river, perhaps as a first line of defense. He does sit down and pray a faithful prayer of submission. But what he should be doing is trusting in God and his promises. Advent brings us to the banks of our Jabbok River so we can confront our past before crossing over to a brighter day. Jacob means one who follows on the heels of another. It's derived from the Hebrew word akib, which literally means heel. Esau and Jacob were not identical twins. When Esau was born, he was all hairy, like a garment, the Bible quips. That's why he was called Esau, because he was hairy. Jacob came out clutching onto Esau's heel. Figuratively, his name means deceiver. As Esau explains, when he learned that Jacob had stolen his inheritance, that he's stolen his blessing, he says, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me these 2 times. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing." Writes Old Testament scholar Walter Kaiser Jr., that the Hebrew word for name, which is name, comes closest to our concept of personality. It identifies a person's character and their qualities, and can even bestow a reputation. Call someone a Scrooge, and nearly the whole entire English-speaking world knows that you are describing someone who is a cheapskate, a penny pincher, a piker, a skinflint, a tightwad, an old and cold-hearted miser. So be careful how you name your children. Someone should have given this advice to the flower generation of the 60s once they started having children. At a school in California, the practice was that the parents would pin a name tag on their son or daughter on the first day of school and send them off on the bus. This is how the kindergarten teachers were introduced to Fruit Stand. Sure, his name was odd, but they had had other students with names like Moonbeam and Sunshine and even Frisbee. Would you like to play with the blocks, Fruit Stand? They asked him. How about a snack, Fruit Stand? He reluctantly accepted. When the time came for them to go home, the teachers took them out to the buses. Which bus is yours, Fruit Stand? The teacher asked. He didn't answer, but he hadn't been answering them all day long. Some children are pretty shy on their first day of school. The other practice they had, though, was that the parent would write their bus stop on the back of their child's name tag. So the teacher flipped over Fruit Stand's name tag, and there printed neatly was the word Anthony. As is often the case in Hebrew, there's a play on words here in the text. Yaakov goes a man at the Yabok. Jacob wrestles a man at the Jabbok River. Though the text says a man wrestled with Jacob, later verses show us that this was no mere mortal. In fact, it was a theophany, which is a physical manifestation of God. Many scholars believe that this was an appearance of Jesus in the flesh, an appearance before his birth in Bethlehem. In my mind, I see this wrestling match between the man, Jesus, and Jacob going something like the conversation between Bel and Scrooge goes in one of the shadows of his past. Another idol that displays me. What idol? A golden one. This is the even-handed dealing of the world. There is nothing on which it is so hard as poverty, and there is nothing it professes to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth. You fear the world too much. The spirit of fear uses every opportunity to point out the wrongs that have been committed against us. We were passed over for our dream job. We were falsely accused of stealing in high school. We were beaten up by the school bully while all our friends stood around and watched. The spirit of fear also uses every opportunity to point out our regrets to us. We help ruin a person's reputation by gossiping about it. We lied on our resume to get a job. We falsely accused someone of stealing in high school to protect ourselves. We were a bully who not only beat up and threatened younger children, but were continuing to do it as adults. There was a boy at my door singing a Christmas carol last night, Scrooge says. I wish I should have given him something. Jacob is unyielding in his struggle with the man, Jesus. So he touches his hip and disables him. This forces Jacob to hold on to the man, to not rely any longer on his own strength or power, but now he can only rely on God. So he says, I will not let go until you bless me. And the man, Jesus, asks, what is your name? Not, who are you? Walter Kaiser Jr. points out that when you ask who in the Bible, in Hebrew, you're simply asking for the identification, for the name. When you ask what, you're asking for the character, the qualities, the reputation of the person. When he answered Jacob, this is tantamount to a confession. I am the deceiver. Advent brings us to the baptism of the Jabbok River, where we can wrestle with God and come away with a limp, or we can willingly submit to his authority. Either way, God is going to have his way. Advent brings us to the banks of the Jabbok River, where we can be alone with Jesus, like Jacob, and confess our fears and our pride and our ego and our secret sins. Advent brings us to the banks of the Jabbok, where we can wrestle with God and let him pin us down to the mat. Because as one commentator says, we're not going to conquer much until we have been conquered by him. Israel comes from two Hebrew words. One is the verb sarah, which means to contend or fight or rule, and the other is El, or God. Some take this to mean that Israel then means one who contends with God, or one who rules with God. But God is not the object of the verb sarah, but the subject. This means that Israel means God contends, or God rules. When Jacob confesses his name, the man, Jesus says to him, no longer will your name be Jacob, but Israel. For you have struggled with God and men and have overcome. A name change in the Bible indicates a new relationship or a new character, a new phase of life, Kaiser points out. Like when God renames Abraham, saying, for I have made you a father of many nations. And Sarah, her name will now be Sarah, because she will be a mother of many nations. When the man, Jesus, says, because you have struggled with God and men and have overcome, he doesn't mean that Jacob has defeated God or other men, but that he has beaten himself. Because he has faced his struggles with ego and pride, his secret sins, that he has confronted his regrets and fears of the past and overcome. Finally, literally, he yields to God, who has appeared to him in the flesh. Jacob's name changing to Israel indicates a new direction in his life. Not that he's become a believer. He's already a believer. We've seen that in his prayers. Rather, this means he's changing from being simply a believer into becoming a disciple. More than just acknowledging God, he is yielding to God. For us, this is like moving from confessing Jesus to becoming a disciple of Jesus, to yield to his authority in our life. Jacob shows that though we can't change our past, as the ghost of Christmas past explains to Scrooge when he says, remove me from this place, the lessons of our past can change our character and point to a brighter future. To slightly paraphrase the Spanish philosopher, George Santayana, those who do not struggle with the past are often condemned to repeat it. The past can be a rudder to guide us forward or an anchor to drag us down. We can change. We can be like Fruit Stand's teacher and simply turn our name tag around and have a new identity. We can be the person God hopes for us to be. Advent brings us to the banks of the Jabbok so we can prepare to cross over and greet Jesus. Peniel means the face of God. Jacob renames the ford at the Jabbok River Peniel He says, because this is where I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared. A new day dawns for Jacob, or rather, a new day dawns for Israel, as it does for anyone who finally comes and confesses their own ego, their own pride, those secret hidden sins, their fears to Jesus. As Reverend Warren Grisby notes, Israel's limp was a mark of power, not weakness, because now he was walking in the Spirit and not in the flesh. And office commentator David Wilkerson, one of the greatest miracles the Lord can perform on our behalf is to cripple all our human efforts and make us totally dependent on him. Just as the ghost of Christmas past takes Scrooge on a journey through his past so he can learn how he became the person he is, how he can deal with his fears and regrets. Advent is a season that invites us to also explore our past, to confront our fears and our weaknesses and our regrets. So we are prepared to receive Jesus when he comes again. The question is, will I